Hello there, everyone, and welcome to another episode of The Metagame, the live streaming show right here on the Dice Tower, where we talk about board games and sometimes talk about talking about board games, hence the meta part of the metagame. And you are not going to sit here and just watch me yammer out at you. Well, actually, I guess you are going to watch me yammer, but it's not going to be all just my own words, because I, as always, am joined by the live streaming YouTube chat, and we're going to share some of the chat comments that get posted, and there might be questions, there might be comments, there might be other things about the topic. So we're going to do a little bit of sharing and collaboration as this episode goes along. So if you are in our live streaming YouTube chat right now and you have something that you want to share with the show, be sure to add, where'd it go? There it is. Make sure to add the hashtag TMG to your post for the metagame. Because what I'm going to do is, after I introduce the topic and discuss it, and we turn over to the YouTube chat, during that portion, I'm going to use my web browser's search tool to search for the TMG hashtag, which is going to highlight the comments that have it, make them rise to the top, and those are the comments that we'll be responding to during the show. So, before we get started, though, I wanted to take a moment to just mention that I saw a video this morning that Tom posted saying that he and his family and the other families and crew members and families from the Dice Tower are currently safe in Orlando. So I just wanted to mention that we're all glad that Tom and his family and the Dice Tower and everyone else is safe and sound right now, and we hope very much, in our thoughts and prayers, we hope that everything blows over very nicely and there's not too much collateral damage from the storm, and that everyone is nice and safe throughout the whole thing. So hopefully we'll continue getting some more updates from them, and we'll continue to see that they are okay. So, but in the meantime, we have a discussion here to have, so let's get into it. So today's discussion is something that recently came to my own attention, and it made me wonder how many of the other viewers out there are actually willing to confess the same thing. And that is, I discovered why I, in some ways, am a board game snob. Little things that I discovered about myself that, little thoughts that cross your mind, not necessarily things that you act on or whatever, but those thoughts that do creep in and the little preferences that you have. And let me give you an example. I made a bulleted list of 3 examples I have of my own instances of board game snobbery, and then we'll compare notes with the live stream, and we'll see just how much worse of a person I am than all of you, apparently. So let's get started. The first thing is the most recent one. And that is, just last weekend, I had a local game day here in my town. And I went and I played a game called Cosmic Run with a friend of mine. The first time I'd played it, he introduced it to me. It's this little dice rolling game. Excuse me. And in Cosmic Run, is designed by the same person who designed Biblios and was involved in Herbaceous, and I think it's Dr. Finn's Games, I think, is the publisher that published it. And in this game, you have like 6 dice that you roll, and you kind of have a Yahtzee mechanism going on where you will roll the dice, and then you will have to choose at least one and lock it down in a different area. And then you can lock down one or more, but then you'll pick up the rest of your dice, re-roll, and you have to lock down at least one more. So you have this more and more dwindling pile of dice that are going on. So you'll have these planets, 5 different planets on the board that you lock your dice into. And one of them requires a dice showing 1 pip to get locked into. The next planet requires a pair of the same number. The next one requires a triple, then 4 of the same kind, and 5 of the same kind to lock down on these planets. And there's also cards that you can get and little upgrade tools that you can use. So you have all these options to get. And over time, you get more and more upgrade cards that make making these dice rolls easier and easier to do. I played the game, and after I played it, I thought it was okay. But then I couldn't get it out of my mind. And I kept thinking about it. And the next day I was thinking about it. It's like, man, I really want to play that Cosmic Run game again. So I went out to look for it online, and lo and behold, it's completely sold out. It's out of print. So I started looking at like the Board Game Geek Marketplace and other locations to try and find anyone that was selling a copy of this game. And I found two. One was someone in the United States, a few hundred miles away from me, who had a copy of the game, opened, only played once. The other copy of it, though, was being sold for a cheaper price, and it was new in shrink, but is someone in Europe who has it. And then after the exchange rate and shipping, it actually came out to a few dollars more expensive for that copy. So what do? Do I go and get the copy I can get faster, even though it's been opened up and played? Or do I get the copy that is farther away, will take longer to get to me, is slightly more expensive, but it's still new in shrink? Well, that's what I realized as I was placing my order for the copy in Europe that's farther away and more expensive, will take longer to get to me, but is new in shrink. That's when I came up for the topic for this episode, and I realized, okay, yeah, maybe I am a board game snob in some respects. I am willing to pay a little bit more and wait a little bit longer to get the copy that's new and shrink versus the copy that's only been played once. It's probably pristine and it's probably like new, except it's been punched and it's not shrink wrapped in its original shrink wrapping. So there you go. There's an example of my confession that yes, I'm willing to go through the little extra hoops because of the board game snobbery. The two other examples I have here are slightly quicker ones. One is, do you always insist on playing the same color when it comes to playing a game? Now, lots of times I will, because I started out playing a color that just no one else would ever play. No one else ever wanted to play yellow, so I just started taking yellow because it was always left over. And then something happened and everyone else always wants to play yellow now. So when it comes time for people to pick their colors, I instinctually want to grab for the yellow, but I try to give myself a couple of seconds to see if anyone else grabs it. And that way I'm not always being as obnoxious as I could be. I find ways to be obnoxious in other colorful ways. But I try not to grab for yellow because I find myself instinctively going for it now just because of the habitually going for it. And that can be seen as obnoxious sometimes, always taking the one main color there. The other thing I found too is that if I don't play yellow now, I have become so locked into it that I will sometimes when we play start grabbing and moving the yellow pieces. I think, oh no, today I'm playing green, not yellow. That's right. So, but that kind of now that is an instance that could definitely be. I could definitely go more snobby with that as possible. Is there anyone who insists on being a certain color, and if they can't be that color, they won't play the game, or they carry around the little baggie of various meeples and components in a certain color, so that if a game doesn't have that color, they can slap them down on the table and play? I stopped doing that after a while, but I'm wondering if anyone else. No, I never did that. Again, the last example I have about board game snobbery, before we move over to the discussion with the live chat, is an example I was talking about on a recent other live streaming episode that I was doing with my wife, where we were talking about games while we're camping. And a horribly snobby confession came out of me. Where we camp, right across from us, there was this horseshoe pit. And people would play horseshoes there throughout the weekend that we were camping, and we kind of watched some people. And I had brought some games to the campground, and we were talking about if those type of generic outdoor games are as good as board games. And of course, they are. Any game that someone enjoys, if that person is enjoying it, that's all it takes for that to be a quality, good game to play. You can't compare and say this game is better than that game, whether it be a generic public domain game that's been around forever, a field game, or a board game, or a Ameritrash, or a Euro game. It doesn't matter. That's all that matters if the people are enjoying the game. But I had to admit that when I'm sitting there with my copies of the latest board games to play at the campground, there is a part of me that has the thought cross my mind that these games, modern board games in general, are better than these generic old games like Horseshoe. And the thought does cross my mind. I don't believe it, and I don't act on it, and I don't tell people that they could be playing a better game than Horseshoes, but I don't know if it's just because of my involvement with the industry or my enjoyment I get out of these games, but the thought does cross my mind. And it's one of the most board game snobby thoughts, even snobbier than the other ones, that could possibly cross my mind. So I wanted to compare notes. What other confessions do you have about board game snobbery in your own lives? Because really I want to see what else people are doing to, if nothing else, make myself feel better. So let's go over to the chat now, and let's try to make myself feel better by going and searching for our hashtag, and we will see what there is to see. All right, let's start things off in the conversation with a comment here by Kabuki Kid, who takes the time to make the following confession. Personally, says Kabuki Kid, personally, I don't insist on a game to still be in shrink, but I am pretty particular about condition and completedness. So I will go for a new copy if I'm concerned about missing pieces. And for color, I always play yellow. Oh no, yellow. Again, it's everywhere now. I always play yellow, but I don't insist on it. I usually don't have a fight since it doesn't seem to be a popular color at least. So there we go. I was hoping against hope for something that I could... Your comments are completely understandable and completely plausible. I was hoping for comments that would make me be able to be on a bit of more of a high horse and feel more superior. But no, that completely makes sense what you're saying. When it comes to used games in particular, hoping for condition and completedness. Yeah, that's definitely something that I worry about. Oh, hey, I just thought of a new way to be a game snob. I have a game called Paris Connection, which I'm not going to go grab off the shelf unless I put it right here, which I did not, so cool. I have a game called Paris Connection, which is a fun little light train mapping game where all the players have like all of these like 30 or more little tiny wooden trains in different colors. And at a game day a year or so ago, well, over a year at this point, at a local game day, a friend of mine, some acquaintances, were playing it at another table. And that's cool. That's, share the wealth, have fun. That's what we're there for. But at one point during the game, I noticed them on their hands and knees under the table. It's like, hey, what you guys doing over there? It's like, oh, we dropped a piece. But they found it and they put it back. And it's like, all right, we found it. Never mind. We got all the pieces back. Sorry about that. So, oh, no problem there. But when I got home, I will to this day take my copy of Paris Collection off the shelf at least once every other month and recount all the pieces just to make sure they're all there. And it's like, oh, I counted it 2 months ago, but maybe I missed something. So I'll take it out and I'll count it again. So I do take that game out and count the pieces over and over and over again because I am just worried that they ruined my copy of the game and it's no longer complete because it's been used by someone other than me that wasn't paying enough attention to it. And that is total game snob. That is total my own issue to deal with. But it is something, Kabuki, that your comment reminded me of. So hopefully I'm the only one who has that level of concern about completedness about their games if anyone else is so bold as to come and touch and let alone play the game. Okay, let's continue on to the next comment, and I'll try to redeem myself here with David Thee, who says, I'm really just a snob when it comes to games that have either overstayed their welcome, such as Risk or Monopoly or etc., or overplayed party games like Cards Against Humanity or Exploding Kittens. So I'm taking, David Thee, that you are, the snobbiest part of that is just you'll decline to want to play those games just because of either being overplayed or overstayed. I think that's fair. I would wonder, though, here's what I wonder, David Thee, and if you follow up on this, maybe you already have in another comment or not. But when one of those games comes up and you choose to decline, do you just decline and excuse yourself? Or do you decline and propose an alternative? Because really, I can see pros and cons of both. One might be, you don't want to come across and just say no and be antisocial, but you don't want to come across and say, no, let's do what I want to do instead, and always be the guy that's like, hey, let's do my thing, because that could be even more snobby. So I'm wondering, what kind of equilibrium, what compromise do you do? Which approach do you take? Because I can see either one of those having their own problems. So I'm just wondering what your experience has been. So either let me know here in the old chat-a-rooney or in the comments after this gets posted as a video on the YouTube channel. All right, let's continue on to the next instance of the TMG hashtag. So if you're joining us late and you have something to say, make sure you include that hashtag, because I'm searching with my search tool for that hashtag, and that's the comments that are being highlighted for me. Ryan Moore mentions, I don't care about the outside box at all. Okay, Amazon warehouse deals are great. Now I just tape up the damaged box if that's required. If there's missing components, well, that's a different story. Oh, Ryan. Okay, you know what, Ryan? That is really good to hear. That is exceptionally good to hear, because I think that is one way that we game snobs can redeem ourselves. I also don't want to get on a high horse or whatever, but I also don't care about the boxes as much. In fact, for any other viewers out there who are not as concerned about the outside box, I have a tip for you. And again, this really only works if you don't really care as much about the outside box. And if you do care about the outside box, you are not a bad person or a snob or whatever. Everyone has their own priorities when it comes to gaming, and that is cool and that is fine. So don't think this is a judgment call on that. This is just a tip. When I'm at a convention, one of the hardest things is when you inevitably give in and buy more games at a convention than you set out to purchase in the first place, and you have this big box of games, and you're wondering, how in the world am I going to get these back home from the convention? Obviously, these boxes are not all going to fit in your suitcase. Even if you open up the shrink and try to put boxes within boxes, it's still not easy. So, heaven forbid, this is what I have taken to doing. I will flatten my box tops and bottoms. I'll just down the corners, I'll break the corners, make them flat, and that allows me to get just tons more games into my luggage when I run out of luggage space. I will not do it to every game. I'll just do it to the ones I need to get them into my luggage to fit. Now, of course, you could pay for shipping at a UPS or FedEx station and ship them home, which I have done sometimes. You could bring extra luggage with you, and you could put your games in your luggage and just have it be a bag you check on your way home, which I've seen others do as well. But for those times that you didn't plan on getting a game, or you just kind of overdid it, flattening the boxes can be and the solution. Then when I get home, I will take a little bit of the clear cellophane packing tape, the real good thick packing tape, corners inside and out of the boxes on the top and bottom. Sometimes just the outsides works just fine. And with that big, thick, clear cellophane packing tape, honestly, I have games sitting on my shelf right now that I have fixed in this way. In response to Ryan about if you care about the outside of the box or not. And a tip, if you don't, that you can use. Okay, Kabuki follows up here to say, if you really, and that's all in caps, really love opening and punching a game, getting that spanky new copy may be worth it for you. The punching is a lot of fun to a lot of us. That is true, Kabuki. I have actually made a video, one of my Head in the Clouds editorials was about how punching components can be like a Zen-like relaxing experience. And it is true. I absolutely agree with you. In fact, when I get, if I get a bundle of games that I order, I will actually try to pace myself and not open them all up all at once. I will save them and slowly savor, like when I have a difficult day or something, I'll save one of those and say, well, at least I have a game that I can go downstairs and punch out some components, turn on the radio, punch some components and just relax for a little while. And it actually is a nice, relaxing Zen experience. So you're absolutely right, Kabuki Kid. Opening and punching a game can be a lot of fun to a lot of us for a lot of different reasons. It's also fun just to explore new things too, lots of times. Dave and Thee also follows up to say, as long as somebody hasn't spilled pizza sauce or beer on the game and it's lightly played, then I don't mind used. I give everyone else the option to choose. Oh, then talking about colors, I give everyone else the option to choose first. And I'm usually the one hosting, so that's just good etiquette. Ooh, and that is a good point. I think the opposite is the opposite of snobbery etiquette. Is that what the opposites are? For all intents and purposes, I'm going to say yes, it absolutely is. So for this conversation, we live in a universe where our opposite of snobbery is going to be etiquette, because I think that's a really good way to put it. You can find the balance. Is what I'm doing good etiquette? Well, if not, it might be leaning towards the snobbery side. So that's a helpful little tip there for us. Let's move on to Rob Pearson, who says, I will, 99% of the time, go for the blinged out version of the game. I love components, maybe too much. I always play blue, and my wife always plays blue. I generally always just start with it. Generally, if I don't play blue, I'll move the blue pieces at least one time per game. I feel your pain there, Rob. And not only with the accidentally grabbing the other player's pieces, if they're playing the color you usually do, but I also feel your pain about the blinged out components. I am a self-professed component compulsory proponent, and yeah, I love a good blinged out game as well. I would not shy away from a game simply based on it not having up to snuff components. If hopefully I'm above that level where I would still give the game a chance. But if there's a chance to bling out a game, oh boy howdy, yeah, I will take the extra time and effort to go collect those pieces lots of times just to have the further immersion in the experience a bit. And we have just met our good friend Comment Window Jump. So I need to find my spot where I was because the comments just went and jumped away. There's Pizza Sauce playing blue. There we go. We're getting back on track here. Okay. One more comment here from Kabuki, and then we'll looks like there's some comments from others too. So this is good. We'll add some more people into the mix here. After Kabuki's comment of, one guy in my regular group always plays black if it's available, is the point where we know to always just hand him the black pieces or save them for him because they are his. You know what? My best friend growing up, Mick, who's been in some videos with me, his favorite color is black. And it was always kind of a thing with him. He was a bit of a nonconformist growing up. And so he wore a lot of black, not in an emo way, but he so black was always the color is his. And so when we get together with him, I instinctually just throw the black pieces to him first as well. So I don't know if it's just the personality or if it's the fact that people who are really into the black pieces, if there's something about the way that they latch onto the color black, if there's something that just makes it stand out more to the rest of us. I don't know, but I can definitely relate with my own personal experience that's similar to that. Maybe they know each other. That would be a small world. Let's continue on with a comment here from Creative Ashley, who says, I don't mind buying used as long as everything is there, but that's because I don't have space. So boxes that are not gorgeous get tossed and everything's stored in a small storage containers or a larger bin. But I don't know if I'll ever resell those games I toss out the boxes for and store the components in smaller containers. Oh, Creative Ashley, that stabs deep. You pointed out another item of board game snobbery. I think that's very commendable that you do that. I think that is great. That puts the functionality and enjoyment of the games over the form of just the artisticness of the games, the aesthetic of the game boxes. Which, either way, because I can't do it though, because I have reached the point in my game collection where I have one wall right here that you can't see, so I don't know why I'm waving at it or maybe mentioning it, but I have one wall of gaming shelves, the IKEA Kallax shelves. Hey, there's another board game snobbery. Do you have IKEA Kallax shelves for your board games? But I have one wall, and I don't. I've talked about it in other episodes about not wanting to overdo it and let the games overtake this room or anything. So I've gotten to the point now where I have to make the decision. Either start culling as new games come in, or do what Creative Ashley just said and break down games into smaller boxes. And there's a lot of games that I could get generic boxes and get like a printed color label or something and label those boxes. And I've considered doing it, but I haven't been able to bring myself to do it yet for some reason. And it's ridiculous because I'm not going to resell a lot of these games. Maybe in the future, I don't know. I'm not planning to, but I might give them to a local game library or, okay, yeah, maybe. I don't know. That's not what's important. What's important here is I have not yet been able to get over the mental hurdle of moving the games from their oversized box to a smaller container that would fit the game just as well and give me more space on my shelf to have more games to not have to get rid of them. I just have not been able to get over that mental hurdle yet. And that, to me, is another aspect of board game snobbery, where it's like, I want this to look this certain way, and I will damage my collection just to keep it looking this certain way. That's an interesting thing. And I'm not saying that anyone who has that same perspective, I'm not saying it's bad, I'm not saying that it's foolish, I'm just saying it is a very interesting part of the human psyche, what we value when it comes to these collections sometimes, and the things that we know, hey, I could even have more options available to me, but it would require changing it in such a way, I don't know if I can make that change. I am going to try, though, because you have inspired me, Creative Ashley. You have inspired me to try and see what I can come up with for that. So we'll see. Thank you very much. Back to Kabuki for a second, who says, I am very anal about buying used games when stickers are involved. Oh, this is a curious one. Okay. Last time I bought a used game with stickers, I bugged the seller to send me photos so I could see how well they were placed. Oh, that is very interesting. So the placement of the stickers, not necessarily the stickers being worn off or peeling, it was the actual placement of the sticker onto the components themselves. That is very curious. I say that is definitely something that I'm wondering how many more people that same thought and concern has crossed their minds as well. I know when I place stickers on my own pieces, I am very deliberate and take a lot of time putting stickers on. Think about games I've played or games I've received from others that were pre-stickered. Personally, I know that I've had some, but I've looked at them and gone, that's off center, that's weird, and maybe turn it over if it's sticker on both sides. But it's never prevented me from purchasing a game. However, that's cool though. That it's just I'm wondering how many resellers have sent you photos or pictures or stuff, and how often it comes up with a stickered game, because I'm wondering if there's more games out there that have stickers or applicable things out there that I'm thinking that this would actually be an issue for. So let me know. Follow up on that, because I'm wondering what percentage of time you have to deal with that issue. Very interesting one. Let's continue on to Tristan, who says, I don't think it's necessarily bad to think modern board games are objectively superior to other games, as long as you aren't a jerk about it. And I think that's really the crux of this episode, Tristan. I agree, and I think you bring out a very good point. This conversation about being a board game snob, hopefully this is coming across very tongue-in-cheek. We're just having fun with some of our idiosyncrasies when it comes to being a board game enthusiast, the fun little personality quirks that we all have. And I think there's a big fine line between being this quote-unquote gaming snob and crossing that line and being a jerk about it, because snob to me is not the same as jerk. And I think you did it. You explained it really well. You can have opinions on what is objectively superior, but you don't have to be a jerk and enforce those opinions and force others to have unwelcome advances of your opinions thrust upon them like some sort of opinion wet blanket. And I think that is something that not just with board games, of course, but universally, we can apply as human beings. I'm trying to think of an example, a really good example of snobbery, board game snobbery versus board game being a jerkness. And I'm not coming up with something right off the top of my head. So if anyone else thinks of a good example of that, well, this would be board game snobbery, and this would be just being a jerk. If anyone else has excuse me, if anyone else has examples of this, post them in the chat, and if we get to them, we'll have kind of some compare and contrast examples to talk about as well. So thank you for bringing that up, Tristan. That's a really good point. Jerry mentions, I used to fight to be blue, but I made a conscious effort to stop doing so about 5 years ago because it became too much effort. And that's a really good point, is the effort. The amount of energy it takes to sometimes get that same color. And if a color, it's another good point. If you are a certain color and then you play a game that does not have that color available, well then you're in the same boat as you would be anyways. And so trying to be flexible in the color choice is something that I personally have tried to become more flexible with. The worst part of it is still, though, that habitual instinct to go and grab for yellow even though I'm not playing it. And that is the worst part, is that just, oh yeah, I'm not playing that color this time. Even worse when you play multiple games in one day and you switch colors each game and you reach for the colors that you were last game, or you're looking at the board, counting up your points, and you realize you've been counting up another player's points for the last half hour. That's really the worst part of the whole color picking issue right there. But thank you, Jerry, for mentioning that. Creative Ashley also follows up to say that I'm just happy when I find people to play board games with, so I don't care about color. And that's a really good point. That's really what it's all about, is being able to find people to play these games with. I mean, really, I think I've mentioned it before, getting into the board games in like 2012, when I did, it was primarily to meet new people and make new friends, because we had moved to a spot further away from town. We weren't seeing our friends as much anymore. I wasn't doing anything except working and then coming home and doing more work in the evenings. And I needed to find some new friends and find a hobby to share with them. And so Creative Ashley, I think if there was one chat post so far today that was worthy of printing out, framing, and hanging behind me on the wall, it would be that. I'm just happy when I find people to play board games with, so I don't care about color. And absolutely, the people, that's what it's all about. Let's move on to Vanda, who says, my daughter's kindergarten had a wish list of mass market games earlier this year. We went off list and bought Chicken Cha-Cha-Cha instead. Oh, that's interesting, Vanda. I want to put this diplomatically. I don't want to come across as a snob in my response to you. I've been in a similar situation with that, with like the Secret Santas or the little giving trees or wish lists for the schools and stuff. And as a board gamer, I think that we can run into a problem of, oh, they want Monopoly? Well, I know a better game than Monopoly, so I'm going to get them this better game. And that can be a double-edged sword. It can be either, oh, cool, that was very thoughtful. Thank you, this is even better. Or it could be, oh, thanks, but I really wanted Monopoly. We don't know necessarily, what that other person or group of people is thinking. So that can be a very thoughtful approach, I think. But I would worry that if we as board gamers do that, it could be seen as instilling our own opinion into these areas and saying, oh, no, what you want on your wish list, that's not good. That here's something that's better. Well, maybe there's a reason why the original thing was asked for in the first place. I don't know, though. I'm not in that class. I don't know the people that asked for the games or made the wish list. I don't know. Only the person who's right then and there with the more experience about it is really the one to make that judgment call. So hopefully, though, I think the most important thing would be to when any of us as gamers are in that gift-giving situation, the most important thing that we can do is communicate as much as possible with the recipient to make sure that our ideas match their expectations. So anyway, I don't want to dwell on that too much. The bottom line, though, is I think it's cool that you went out of your way to help fulfill the class's wish list, because that's spreading the hobby in a positive way, and that is very commendable and very cool. So thank you, Vanda, for sharing that. David Thee has a confession about one of his board game snobby quirks, in that David Thee says, I sleeve everything. And then in all caps, everything. I would very much now like to play a board game with you, David Thee, because I want to see, is the box sleeved? Oh, I hope so. That would be so awesome. Are the sleeves, extra sleeves that you're not using, are those sleeved? Oh, again, I hope so. I would love to be playing a game with meeples in tiny little Ziploc bags with you. Anyway, so David Thee, if you're ever at a convention or whatever that I'm going to be at, bring one of your games that have everything sleeved. And I would love to sit down at a game and just play. In fact, it's so cool if like it's at a resort, that allows you to like play at like the hotel swimming pool even, because everything would float. And so you open up this whole new area of recreation for board gaming. Wow. In the saunas, in the skiing. Wow. You just have expanded my board gaming horizons, and simply by the thought of sleeving everything. I think we can go, there's somewhere we can go with this. But in the meantime, that's going to take some planning. Let's continue on to the next chat in the list, which again is from Kabuki, who asks, is completedness a variant of completeness, Chaz? I am not going to apologize for my vocabulariation in this episode, because lots of times when I am doing one of these live stream shows, my brain realizes that my mouth is still talking long after my brain has figured out what it's going to say. And my brain is like, you're still going. You're on your own now, mouth. So, so I make no apologies for anything at all that is said. So let's continue on now to Timothy to see what words I put in his mouth. Timothy says, I try to pick the best of the board games. I do this because I don't have the money or time to spend on the plethora of board games that are out there. Does this make me a snob or just a smart buyer? Oh, Timothy. Oh, excellent question there. Very good one. I do not think that makes you a snob at all. 0%. Because if you're trying to get the best product for the budget that you have available and you're doing your research into it, that's not snobby. That is wise consumer research right there, I think. I think it would be snobby if going to a friend's house and seeing, or game group, and seeing a game in their collection and then saying, I didn't buy that one because it wasn't worth my money. I bought this other one instead. Then we have crossed the line over to snobbery and perhaps even into jerk territory. Thinking that the purchase choices you made are better than the purchase choices someone else made. Well, then you're crossing that line. But just simply picking the best board games you can for the budget you have available? No, not snobbery at all, in my opinion. I would stand by you. And even though I probably have I allocate a larger budget for board game purchases than probably most people viewing, just because of the circumstance of what I do for work and hobby, is probably larger. I still run in the same boat. I can't buy everything that I want to buy, and so I even try to make the wisest purchase decision as well. So it's not even a matter of how much of a budget you have. I think large budget, small budget, still you can be a discerning, wise consumer when it comes to doing that. So right on, Timothy. I think you're right on track. Hey, Round To It joins us. I haven't talked to you in months. Round To It. So it's nice to see your little avatar and name in the chat window again. Round To It says, because of a ludology segment, and ludology is a really awesome board game podcast by Jeff Enkelstein and his friends. Because of a ludology segment about player color affecting subconscious play, I try to choose red in more aggressive games and blue when it's a more thoughtful game. #snob. Ooh, that's a very good point. And I believe the episode that you were talking about is that red can actually be more of an intimidating color, and blue can be more of a cooperative, collaborative color, based on scientific study research. So I don't know if that actually constitutes a snobbery round to it. Is that snobbery, or is that simply using more information to your advantage, information that your opponents may not have, and using it to your advantage? I think that is more clever than snobbery, and something that I should start instituting myself, because really when it comes to games, I will need every advantage I can get. So perhaps I need to make the switch from yellow to red for that reason alone. Thank you. You have made me a more vicious evil player, so I appreciate that. Let's go back to a message here from Kabuki, who says, regarding completedness, I am so concerned about completedness, or completeness, or completeness. There's the word. That's the word, completeness. I am so concerned about completedness that I will completely inventory every single chit, every cube, every dice, etc. when I crack the game from Shrink. It's a ritual. I'm getting in more and more in that boat as time comes along. I have been very fortunate, I think, in that I have only had fewer than I can count on one hand. Out of the hundreds of board games that have crossed my desk and whatnot, I have only had like less than 5 that have had missing components. And typically when that has happened, I've contacted the manufacturer and they've gotten supplies to me, without any further questions or whatever. They've given me the missing components. They just mail them out. So, but it is something that as time goes by, I have become more and more concerned about, because worse than opening up a game and going, I can't play this yet until I get these missing components, would be opening the game, putting it on the shelf, and then letting enough time go by that when you finally do pull it off the shelf to play, it's now like out of print or something. And when you find you have missing pieces, they're no longer available from the manufacturer and you can't get them. That would be worse, I think. So I think that that's actually a very fine ritual to get into. And I don't think it's out of the ordinary or too anal or anything. I think that is something that I think is worth doing. So take that. I don't know if I'm agreeing or disagreeing with you. I'm doing both at the same time, Kabuki. So let's continue. Oh no, comment jump. Okay, we need to research. I was just getting to where the comments were leaving off, but it jumped. So let me get back. Photos, Ice Leave Everything, Ludology podcast. Okay, we are getting right back here. Someone gasp, breaking corners, talking about that portion. Okay. Rick George mentions, I love Tasty Minstrel games. Yes, the TMG, the metagame hashtag, does have some similarities with Tasty Minstrel games, but I thought that we all agreed not to bring that up during the chat. So I have been slapped in the face by that similarity once again. Let's continue on to Jess, who says, my snobbery is mostly around liquids and board games in my collection, especially after I got Robo Rally destroyed by another person. Not all, depends on how expensive and how easy they are to play. That's one of those things. I'm glad you brought up liquids and foods around games, because that's one I struggle with, wondering how snobby do I want to be about this. I've fortunately never had a game destroyed, either one of my own or at a board gaming event or something that I'm hosting or attending, which is nice. But I do know that the board game group that I was running regularly, we did institute a rule after a few weeks of anyone that brought a beverage, the beverage had to have a cap on it, screw-on cap or a closable lid, no open containers that could spill. And nothing actually happened. There were some close calls, but in instituting that rule, I wondered if that was going to be seen as snobbery, board game snobbery. But it's really to hopefully it was seen as protecting the games that these people are bringing in and sharing with others, and kind of more of a courtesy thing. There's several different levels you can go there, Jess. Do you allow liquids on coasters? Do you allow liquids only if they're sealed containers, or do you just ban them completely? There's lots of different levels you can go. And I think that every board game group would see each one as a different level of snobbery. And so, excuse me. So I'd be curious to know, when you say your snobbery is most around liquids, is it that you allow them or banned them? Or do you allow them, but in your mind you're secretly judging that cup, going, that cup is going to spill. I do not like that cup. That cup needs a lid. I would have brought a better cup than that cup. I could give that guy a better cup if he would just let me. Is it that level? So I'd be interested. Follow up in the chat or the comments if you can. What is your level of concern when it comes to liquids, and what level of action do you take to be anti-liquid? I would be interested to know if you can follow up on that. Let's continue on with Rick. Rick says once, he lets us know that once a friend of mine invited me to participate in a market research study for his business class. Someone had designed a beautiful modified version of checkers after a presentation. They asked us who we would play with and when, and I told them no, I wouldn't want to play it with anyone because there are much better games. And everyone there was a little astonished with that answer. Oh, that's a really interesting story, Rick, and a very, very special case scenario. And because in that situation, in that environment, since it is a market research type of environment, would not sharing your opinion that you had actually have done more damage to the potential product than sharing your opinion? Because that's what they're there for. They're there for honest opinions about each segment of the market that's available. So now, did you flip the table and say, forget you and your checkers too, and storm out and slam the door behind you? In my imagination, I'm desperately hoping yes, but based on what you said about it and the concerns you had about what you did say, I doubt it. But you can dream. But now I could see others being, the way you said that they were astonished, I could see them seeing that as snobbery at some level. But in that case, I think that it's completely justified, which makes me wonder, are there more situations? Playtesting a prototype. Is that an area where the fear of snobbery needs to be left at the door and you need to just trudge forward and express your opinions honestly? Are there environments and scenarios where snobbery is not only completely justified, but necessary? Very good, very interesting point there, Rick. Cool, thank you for sharing that. Brad mentions, I admit, damaged boxes do bother me. Definitely missing pieces and condition as well. So yeah, I'm a condition snob. I am always considering buying card sleeves. Condition slob. I have condition slob condition. So yeah, and I think that's fair. Like I said, I don't think that anyone that has that opinion on if a damaged box is going to bother them, I don't think that's a good thing or a bad thing. I think because we all have our different priorities when it comes to these games, and one priority is not necessarily better or worse than another. But I'm wondering though, how much damage then can a box have before it crosses that line for you of, no, that's too much damage, I don't want it, I don't want to buy it, or I don't want to have it in my collection anymore? How much? Where's the line? Very interested in finding that out, because we all have a line. In fact, even me, even with my breaking the corners and retaping, there are lines of different box damage I wouldn't want. Mostly it's if I'm worried that the box has a big enough of a hole that the pieces are going to actually fall out. But I don't know if I'd even get to the whole stage. Anyway, let's continue on to comments instead of my rambling. Khan mentions, I kind of feel lucky that no one in my game group chooses black when we play because that's my favorite color. So here is an instance, excuse me a moment. Here is an instance where someone's game group and the lucky chance that no one else wants to play black allows Khan to hide his board game snobbery. And that is very lucky and very fortunate. And I am hoping, I'm always grateful of those instances in which just by sheer coincidence and luck, my snobbery is not revealed. And I am able to not have it be on display for everyone. So So Con, I think you are definitely, I hope you're grateful for that and you realize how lucky you are in that you can continue playing black without having to fight for it. So, or admit it, except to us. Your secret's safe with us. We won't broadcast it on the internet or anything. Okay. Excuse me. We now have about 10 minutes left of the show, so let's enter the old lightning round and try to get to as many comments as possible. So I'll keep my own chit-chat to a minimum, and we'll try to cycle through all these comments and share, so people can share as many of their thoughts as possible. Starting the lightning round with Rick, again, who says, they asked us, that's the follow-up to, that's the second half of his previous comment about his focus group that I already read. So we are really zooming through this lightning round by reading the comments earlier. Let's continue on next to Kabuki again, who says, yeah, my friend who always plays black, if he somehow doesn't get his black pieces, he will likely move the black player's pieces because he can't click out of his playing black mode. Totally understandable, and I certainly feel for him, and I offer my condolences for the awful situation that all the other inconsiderate players keep putting him into when he's not allowed to play black. See, switcheroo. I switched it. I switched it on you. Let's continue on to Ryan, who says, I am the traveling quote-unquote game ambassador throughout my circle of friends. I feel required to turn off any thoughts of snobbery. I almost always randomize colors, factions, characters, etc. You know, Ryan, that's a really good simple solution right there. Just randomizing it all. Just put them in and throw in people's stuff at random. That's a really good way to perhaps overcome the consistent color conundrum. So thank you. Right there. Excellent, simple solution. Dutch Yoda says, if there are only basic colors, I prefer green. Otherwise, I choose the more rare color, like pink or purple. Oh, choosing the rare color. That is another easy, simple way to get around it. And I wonder if the rare colors are picked less often, or if the rare colors actually get picked more often because of their rarity. Excuse me, that would be something very interesting to try and find out. But again, we would have to be playing a lot of the games to find that out. So in the meantime, we'll just continue on with comments. Brad confesses, I have to smell all my new games and books. Love that new game smell. Oh, Brad, this is another thing that a couple of years ago I actually did a video about because, yeah, I have to admit, I am in the same boat. Especially a pack of Magic cards. There's nothing on this planet that has quite the same smell as a brand new, freshly cracked pack of Magic cards. And any board game I open where the cards smell similar to Magic cards, that game just it goes up a couple notches on my list right then and there from that smell. So I can totally understand there, Brad, and you are not alone. Andy mentions, I always play black, but if it's not available or someone else chooses it, I'm fine to play whatever. Now, orange is a second choice I'd make if available. Unintentionally, very Halloween-y of me. That's, excuse me. That's the only thing I'll add to that is the player I mentioned, Mick, my friend who I always give black to. If there's like dice or something, when we play Pathfinder, I don't have enough black dice for him. So I make up for I give him orange. And again, because it's very Halloween-y. So also, there seems to be this trend of if you have black and you need more pieces, giving that person orange. So I guess that's funny that happens. So let's continue on. Creative Ashley mentions, mostly toss boxes. Talking about condensing games down. Mostly toss boxes, store components in smaller bins, then label boards and store them upright on a shelf in a desk file folder holder thingy. But I homeschool 3 kiddos, so storage is limited already. Oh, that's a really good point about how the certain circumstance about that, your storage space that's available can definitely be a determining factor. Thank you for the follow-up with a few more details on the approach that you take on that. Francesca joins us to say, I once bought a used copy of Formula E and the wooden cows had faces drawn on them. What a surprise. That's like a bonus freebie. So you have truly customized, unique components there. Cows with little happy faces. That's really cool. I'm going to be picturing that all day. So thank you very much for the mental image there. Brad mentions, I am an expansion snob. Oh, here's a whole area we didn't even get into. I don't always get, but I want all expansions for my games, even if they aren't rated well. Oh, yes. Like I said, Brad, that is that could be a completely other topic as well. Talking about expansions and the acquisition of expansions. I know we've talked about expansions a little bit, but I don't know if we've ever talked about the habit of getting the expansions, even if you're not that inclined, just because of the completionist attitude. So Brad, I'm gonna percolate, I'm gonna mull, chew on that one, because I think there's a lot more content in that statement right there, and I would agree. Andy says, I've looked at the Container Store thinking it would make sense to keep my games in these nifty containers, but I really struggle with losing the boxes because I'm a huge fan of the aesthetic trappings of the boxes. Fair point. Very fair point. I know that my wife and I both have an unhealthy obsession with containers. So yeah, I totally see where you're coming from there. And I've hit the same hurdles you have. Andy mentions, I have no issue buying used, but I would hope to get a game that is in decent shape and definitely has all the components present. Yep, I can see that, and that's really the concern. If the in-shrink version of Cosmic Run had not been available, I would have scooped up that new copy that was available in an instant. I wouldn't have turned down getting the game at all because it wasn't in shrink. But given the choice, I definitely led towards the shrink one. But I agree, buying used isn't like a thing. Buying used is not a hurdle to prevent buying the game at all, and so hopefully others are in that similar boat. We've got time for 2 more comments here. The first one is also going to be from Creative Ashley, who says, the only thing I can say I'm snobberish about, drum roll please, is even though I love playing games with my kids, I will send them all out of the room during put away just to be safe that everything is there. That is an interesting one, because that contradicts almost everything that I've always heard about, for kids. Instill the fact that they're going to help put away the game. Get that habit instilled to make them a good sport when they play later. This is the first time I've seen someone confess that, oh no, don't worry, kid, go do your thing. I'll put this away. I have done that too, more often than I think I am willing to admit out loud. But yeah, I can see it. But hopefully the balance is there. Hopefully the good sportsmanship is still being instilled, even with the occasional, no, don't worry, I'll just put all this away myself so I can find it when we come back to it next time. So I have also told players, don't worry, and just taken a game and scooped it across the table, put it in the back of the box, and just put the box away, and told them, don't worry, I'll just clean everything up later, with the excuse that I just want to speed up and get to the next game. But in the back of my mind wondering, did I just do that because I want to put the game away correctly? And I'm still not sure. So hopefully the last comment here from Brad will help get me into a better state of mind. Brad says, just came to realize that I am a bit of an age snob. I have kids and often don't want to include the older kids when playing with the adults. I struggle with being age inclusive. And Brad, again, Brad, wow. That is actually a pretty deep item that could lead into an entire episode about it as well. Because I think each of us approach that differently. We have different things we want to achieve, different objectives with each of our game days. And I was raised in a household where when the adults would get together for an adult game night, it was an adult game night. And it was communicated to the kids ahead of time. We're going to have some adult time with our adult friends, and the kids are going to go do something else. Even if there were no other kids coming over and it was just like us, me, or whatever, was just like, you're going to do something else. And I don't think that's necessarily bad. I think that's okay. Not always, you don't want to be neglectful, but I think it's okay to establish those different days. And I will admit, I do get concerns about that sometimes. I never thought about it as being an age snob, but that is something to think about. So here I thought you were going to get me in a better state of mind, and now you have me thinking about even deeper thoughts. So I have a lot of stuff to go mull over and think about. In the meantime, though, I want to just say thank you for joining me. This was a fantastic discussion. When this idea popped into my head, I was like, oh, this is a metagame episode right here. This definitely, we can talk about this one and go. And you guys did not disappoint. So until the next time that we get together, there we go. Want to remind you to make sure to view and subscribe to the Dice Tower and the Pair of Dice Paradise YouTube channels for more board game news and reviews and discussions just like this. In the meantime, let me get that out of my face. In the meantime, thanks to everyone who did join me. I have an ending for this. Oh, thanks again for joining me. I've been your host, Chaz Marler, who, along with the live streaming YouTube chat, have been playing the metagame. Thanks. Talk to you again soon.
Thanks so much for watching the Dice Tower videos. Find more great videos and reviews as well as our top-rated audio podcast at Dicetower.com. You can also find other great shows at Dicetowernetwork.com. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower. The Dice Tower is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc., where you can find great games for great prices. Cool stuff in stock. Check them out at CoolStuffInc.com.